As you most likely know, the NBA released a few months ago their official list, not ranking, of the 75 greatest players in the history of basketball. And just like the top 50 list from 25 years ago, this major event brought out a lot of controversy.
This is borderline the worst fucking NBA list I have seen in my entire life.
But was the list actually all that bad? Were certain choices really that blasphemous? To answer that, let's dive into it. The first thing we should look at is which players on the 75th anniversary team did or did not deserve their spot. So first, I've got to say, they shouldn't have kept every single player from the original top 50 list automatically. Sure, you're supposed to honor the athletes that helped pioneer the game, but at some point you have got to kick some out to make space for other players clearly out-talenting them. I mean, with all due respect, Billy Cunningham and Dave Bing are barely or not even top 100 all-time in this day and age. So if you decide to keep them on the list, of course great players more deserving of it are gonna be left out. Other players who I believe shouldn't have made the list either are Paul Harrison, Dave DeBusschere, Jerry Lucas, Earl Monroe, Bill Sharman, as well as Lenny Wilkins. And then there's players I personally do not have top 75 all time, but whose selections do make a sort of sense. These players are Hal Greer, Sam Jones, Pistol Pete Maravich, Dolph Schayes, and finally Nate Thurmond. But two of the most controversial choices made were current NBA stars Anthony Davis and Damian Lillard making the cut. A lot of NBA fans thought that was flat out blasphemous and that these two players shouldn't even have been considered. However, I personally highly disagree. Looking through a multitude of criteria, it turns out Dame and AD can actually compete with other players on the list, as they would probably rank in the 60th to 75th spot range. To prove my point, let's analyze these two players, starting with Davis. Alright, the problems with him are his health and his leadership, which are kind of left to desire. But on the other side, the Brow is a skilled big man who dominated on both ends of the floor at its peak. Plus, his resume at just 28 years old is already more stacked with accolades than other members of the 75th anniversary team. But what about the Blazers franchise player Damian Lillard? People are gonna point out his lack of major awards won, such as an MVP or a championship ring. But Dame remains an extremely talented player who's been suffering from playing in an era with too much competition. Regardless of his somewhat basic resume, let's not forget Lillard is possibly a top 10 most clutch player ever, who's also really good statistically overall. He's been consistently leading Portland to the playoffs for years, despite the presence of a sometimes deceptive supporting cast. Now sure, you could argue some players were more deserving of a spot on the list, but that doesn't mean Dame and AD necessarily need to be kicked out. Again, this is another emphasis to why certain players from the 1997 top 50 list should not have been brought back automatically. Alright, next up, let's determine which players got snubbed. And trust me, there were quite a few great players who got unjustificantly left out. Here we find Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Pau Gasol, as well as Dwight Howard. There's other players who could have potentially made the list, such as Alex English, Kyrie Irving, Artis Gilmore, Adrian Dantley, and Bernard King. As you've probably seen, Klay Thompson has expressed his resentment for being excluded from the list. The Beast of the Bay said, quote, "In my head, I'm top 75 all time."
Get the New Jersey! Get the New Jersey!
The seventh best player of all time, baby!
And while the Splash Bro Klay Thompson is indeed an amazing player that made his mark in the league, I actually do not have him top 75 all time just yet. He's got some serious upsides and isn't far from reaching that point. But the main problem for him is longevity, which in a more positive note means it's just most likely a matter of time until Klay Thompson becomes the top 75 player in the history of basketball. Well, that is going to be it for today. Feel free to share your thoughts on this in the comment section, and make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell.